The paper was what kind of paper was it? I would say it was a completely illogical paper. It did not make sense to most of the people who were taking the paper. And I'm actually very amused with some of the reasoning questions which students have told me, and also some of those English questions when they were trying to find out what is the equivalence of the British English or the American English for a given set of words. Okay, what kind of paper? As I said, illogical paper, and which made it very difficult. Some of the reasoning questions were amusing to say the least. And if you were not taking the paper, you would have been laughing at the questions. But unfortunately, you were taking the paper, and it's an important exam because and there are a few good institutes, so you don't have the luxury of laughing at the question paper. And those of us who are doing it, so that because we want to understand the question paper and help you analyze what would be a good score, were actually wondering as to what SNAP and the SNAP authorities were trying to test. Okay, so let's quickly go through what we feel about the paper. Okay, just to make it clear, I did not take the paper today. The paper was taken by many other faculty from CL, and a large number of students have given us feedback about the various questions. And the SNAP score calculator should be live in a little while, so that you can go and check out which illogical question you are able to get the right answers of. Okay, it is not going to be any issue for you. I'm sure all of you know what the structure is. The pattern, the structure of the paper was the usual structure. No big deal about this thing. But let's go to the questions. Okay, and from here on, I'll pass it on to Gautam Baba, who's taken the paper, and both of us will jointly do the session for you. Over to you, Gautam.
Yeah, thanks, GP. As GP was rightly pointing out, quite an illogical paper. And actually, when I saw the paper, I generally have a tendency of generally starting the paper with the LR section, considering that each question in the LR section is worth 2 marks. So it generally makes a lot of sense to spend quite a bit of time here. So what I had decided was I'll go into this paper and spend about 45 to 50 minutes for the LR section. So what I'd probably want to do is, when we are talking about the exam structure, probably I'll talk about the LR section first, just to tell you, what the mindset would have been once you came across, as GP rightly pointed out, this absurd paper, because it was very funny to see exactly what they'd set in the paper. I don't know how many of you all remember the question paper. The good thing about this paper was that there were actually just 2 caselets, and both the caselets were very simple. So the one of them was on selection, which was a very easy caselet, which had 4 questions, and the other was the seating arrangement, which had 5 questions. So these 9 questions actually were not very difficult. They were easy to moderate, and they should have actually been done by everybody. The important part, however, is whether people started off with this or not. It is very possible that, at least in my paper, I saw it that it came towards the end of the section. So it might have happened that you spend already 35-40 minutes and think that, oh, isme aur time, we should not spend more time, and gone on to the other part, and you have not seen these questions. But these 9 questions actually could have been maximized for 18 marks. Apart from that, this is where the fun started. So if I talk about the fun, if you look at the part here, the coding, decoding, and the series that we have spoken about here. First of all, God knows what they meant when they set this paper when it comes to coding and decoding. Questions on cab being coded as 723 minus 558. How will you code dad? I really don't know what they were testing you here on, because it was not very easy to understand what they are trying to do. Problem here is basically we came back and we've kind of tried to solve this question. Just to give you an indication of how these questions could have been solved, this particular question on cab, which was coded as 723 minus 5 and 58. Now, we know that A would probably stand for 1, B would stand for 2, C would stand for 3, right? So if I look at this right now, I can say 3 to the power of 6 minus 6 will be 729 minus 6, which is 723, which has been given to you. Then 1 to the power of 6 minus 6 is 1 minus 6, which is minus 5, again, which has been given. Then 2 to the power of 6 minus 6, which is 64 minus 6, which is 58. Thus, this question was dad, so dad would have been 4 to the power of 6 minus 6, and then a would again stand for minus 5, and then again 4 power 6 minus 6. Thus, the answer was actually 4090 minus 5 and 4090. So you can understand how stupid this question is. It does not really test whether your logical ability is there or not. It is basically, to test how many of you had the patience to keep on multiplying, adding, dividing, and seeing whether you can come up with anything under the sun that is possible to reach that answer. And trust me, when I talk about coding, decoding, this was one of the easier questions. So let us not even go on to the other stupid questions that had been set in this paper. But one thing is very, very clear from the paper, and that is that roughly 8 to 10 such questions would have easily stumped quite a few of y'all. Thus, the average attempts in this section would surely go down. Last year, whereas we could have said that you could have attempted around 24 to 25, this year you can easily see roughly about 5 to 6 questions have gone down. And 5 questions going down automatically means achievable score goes down by 10 marks, because you have to keep this in mind. Each question is worth 2 marks here. And that is a very important thing to note here. Thus, a score of around 32, 34 would actually be quite a decent score in this section. Anybody scoring 35 plus should actually, probably pat yourself on your back right now and say, oh yes, commendable job done. As long as you have not wasted time and it hasn't been at the expense of the other sections.
Actually, I would feel anyone who's getting a 40 odd marks will probably not make it through this paper, because you would have wasted so much time in this section that the other section would have suffered. Personally, I like such papers very too much, because these stupid questions are very easy to leave. When I was listening to the question which students were telling me about, I felt, wow, that's good. This is easy to leave question, so you can focus on the rest of the stuff. Okay, but this paper, anyone who spent large amount of time in reasoning would possibly not make it to the next stage.
Absolutely, I completely agree with GP there. So that was basically, talking about the analytical and logical reasoning section. As we pointed out, vis-a-vis last year, you could say about 5 to 6 questions lesser, a score of about 8 to 10 lesser. Thus, do not be tense if you come out of the hall and you are thinking that, it was actually a little difficult. Another thing, where probably I want to talk about in this section is, there were quite a bit of visual reasoning questions that came up, which generally does not come in SNAP. This visual reasoning question generally come up in exams like MHCET, and in those exams it's quite simple. Here, in fact, I remember there was one particular question where they'd drawn a small puppy, there was, a teacup, there was an emoticon of a smiley face, and, they'd actually given it as an analogy, and you had to come up what would be the right answer. Very stupid. Even when we were solving it there, a couple of us, it was like, we couldn't understand, and probably the most stupid and illogical concepts were applied. Then there was one question on which you had to calculate the number of straight lines. There is absolutely no logic there. You will be sitting down and you'll be sitting and calculating lines. So, even though they've called this section analytical and logical reasoning, there was nothing to do with reasoning in this section, personally speaking. So, it was very stupid to even include such questions. So yeah, if you've been smart and, probably not spent a lot of time in this section, given yourself just 35-40 minutes, and you're getting that 34-35 marks, you've done the smart thing today, and you'll probably be one of those who'll surely be clearing the cutoff. Now let's go on to the other section. So, again, I'll go through exactly what I did. The next thing that I went into is verbal. Because after spending time on LR, and especially after looking at the hideous LR that came, you needed something that would help ease, the nerves, and, generally SNAP verbal section is on the easier side. But guess what? The first 11 sections of the verbal section, and I was like, God knows what they actually thought when they were setting this paper. Because the person who would have been able to attempt this paper is actually a grammar Nazi, is a person who is an verbal aficionado, who knows meanings of personification, onomatopoeia, metonymy. God knows, the kind of terms and words that had been used today in the paper. Trust me, this is not a test of your verbal knowledge. This should have been a test of whether you can apply verbal or not. They got it, they mixed it up completely. So this is a complete error on SNAP side. So, if the first 10 or 11 questions I looked at, if you attempted 5 to 6, you should be happy actually. That means you're a logical and sane person. Anybody who's attempted more than that, well, commendable effort. But yeah, you're probably one of the grammar Nazis out there who knows more than they probably need to know when it comes to grammar. Uh, Carrying on from there, there was then, a complete set on something which is known as collocation words. Many of you wouldn't have known what the meaning is, but we sat down with GP, and the first thing GP was like, their collocation must be colloquial. That is, the way in which we've actually gone ahead and solved this section. You probably don't know the meaning of a lot of words, but then looking at the question and looking at the kind of options that were given, you could have attempted a few questions in this verbal section. Here as well, you could have probably done the weapon one. Nuclear weapon is something that you can do. Then seminal research is something which is generally well known. Percentage, I really don't know what you call it. It is used percentage, large percentage, small percentage, big percentage. I really don't know how they want to go about it. So God help them. Apart from that, the idioms questions were not very difficult. Again, the spotting the error questions were also not on the difficult side. As usual, something that happened last year as well, there was just one question on RC. The problem this time was the RC was not very easy to read, but the questions, however, were very, very simple. So, what you could have done is, if you had read the questions first, then gone on and found out where these exact questions are in the passage, it would have probably been easier, because 3 of the questions were actually the starting sentences of the paragraphs. It was that easy to spot. So that could have been a way out today, which is something that a couple of students have also done. So roughly around 4-5 questions in RC were easily attemptable. After that, error spotting, as I pointed out, was not very difficult and was on the easy side. Thus, overall, the problem will actually lay in the first 11 and 14 to 15 questions. There, you might miss out on 8 to 10 questions. Vocabulary questions, which were, roughly around 15 in number, were not very difficult. They were quite simple, actually. It was just about knowing which word needs to be used. For example, that question on raking and looting. Looting is a very serious offense. Raking is something, you want to just take in money from somebody because you are kind of capitalizing on the ill fortune kind of a thing. So, even though they are quite similar in meaning, you could have actually kind of eliminated questions and gone about solving the vocabulary. Antonym, synonym were not on the difficult side. So, vocabulary was probably kind of a savior in this section, even the RC. But it is the first 14-15 questions which might have come as a shock. And thus, probably the number of attempts here would go down. Roughly, last year we would have said about 25 to 26 was good attempts. Here probably it come down by around 3 to 4, and you can say 22 to 24 or 21 to 23 is a good attempt. A score of around 20 would be a decent score. Last year we were saying that a score of 23 would be decent. You can say 2 to 3 marks lesser, and you would still probably be on the easier side. Here again, keep in mind what we have been saying. We said in logical reasoning around 32 to 34. In English we are saying about 18 to 20. Something like that. So basically, these two sections combined, you are looking at a score of 50. Come what may, if you somehow managed to garner 50 marks in these two sections combined, you should be probably in a good position right now. Let's see the next section. Next section generally that I go on to is the quant section, and guess what? As usual, as has been the tendency in this year examinations, quant is the savior. Whether it was IFT or it was CAT or it is SNAP, quant has been the easy section. It's been the savior. Very simple section. Not, no question where you would have even had to think more than once. A couple of questions with mistakes, like for example, there was that question on 1024 factorial. The number of zeros on 1024 factorial. Answer should be 253. Options 253 wasn't there. They had 252 and 256. One simple thing that probably we can make out is the person setting the paper forgot that you also need to divide the number by 625. He divided it by 5, divided it by 25, then by 125, forgot to divide it by 625 and add one more. So probably Snap will say, oh, it's not wrong. The answer is 252. The correct answer should be 253. If you mark 252, I think you will get the marks there. Apart from that, in the quant section, really nothing to talk about. I hope most of you all spent quite a bit of time in this section. 35 to 40 minutes would have easily seen you attempt 30 to 20, 32. And when we say achievable score of 24 to 26, it's only because we think that you might have made 3-4 errors. Actually, there was a possibility of you going ahead with 100% accuracy in this section because the paper was that simple. Thus, in quant, you can easily be looking at around a 25 mark kind of a thing, 24 to 26 kind. So you see, we are saying that you currently are looking at around 75. But if you look at it, you can also aim for around 75 to 80, because as we say, 75 is only the lower end. The upper end, when you keep adding to it, 33, 20, and 30, you can add about 4-5 questions there. Then came the section which generally I consider to be the most important in SNAP, because I do not even look at it. Because there are no sectional cutoffs in SNAP, I generally, try to spend 1 or 2 minutes, attempt one question and move on. So my savior this year was, when did Narendra Modi take his oath? That was my savior. I attempted that one question and I was like, hooray, non-zero, let's move on. But coming back, we came back, we saw the questions that were there. You can see very clearly that static questions dominated this section. Current affairs very limited, and generally it does not happen so. Considering it's an MBA entrance examination, you do find more questions from current affair and contemporary GK rather than static. This year that wasn't the case, and basically that has been the reason why the number of attempts would also fall down by 4 to 5. So last year if somebody could have attempted 14 to 15, this year 10 to 12 with a score of 6 to 8 is actually quite decent. So, in GK you add another 6 to 8 marks, and that automatically means that overall you are looking at around 81 to 85. So basically a score of around 80 to 85 in this paper should mean that you have a very good chance of converting SIBM Pune. And if you get a call from SIBM Pune, it means you automatically get calls from the other institutes, because SIBM Pune has a cutoff somewhere around 97.5 percentile. So yeah, as we said, let's look at the cutoffs. General category for SIBM Pune, we said around the 85 mark. Don't be surprised if it actually goes a little lower and falls by say about 2 to 3 marks. So around 80 to 82 might not be a surprise in this case. But yeah, if you scored somewhere around 85, and you should get to know that quite soon, we'll be out with the memory based paper, say in another 45 minutes or so. So you should know roughly, the kind of score you are expecting. But yeah, the 85 mark, quite decent. SCMHRD, as we always say, reduce everything by 2 to 3 marks, and SCMHRD is what you can look at when it comes, in comparison to SIBM Pune. So if there we are looking at 83 to 87 in SIBM Pune, here 80 to 85 for SCMHRD would be a decent bet. SIIB, obviously you can fall down by another 6 to 8 marks, so probably a range of 73 to 77 kind of a thing. So around the 75 mark would be decent. And for the other category students, SC, ST and DA, as we pointed out, marks keep reducing by around 30 vis-a-vis the general category students. We generally don't talk, we haven't pointed out the Kashmiri migrants because, yeah, there is just one seat for that. But in case you are one of those who's vying for that seat, if you're looking at somewhere around the 72 to 74 score mark, you have a good chance probably to, get a call on the basis of Kashmiri migrant. But do remember that there is just one seat available for that. Okay, so that was basically it from our end regarding, what our take was on the paper. Do keep in mind that we have we'll be launching the score calculator, which should go live, I would say, in roughly 45 minutes to another 1 hour. A couple of the sections have already been uploaded. We are on the verge of doing the other 2 sections as well. The link to note is www.careerlauncher.com/snap. It is the snap score calculator. We will also be providing you with the percentiles in a day or two. But yeah, the legitimacy of the percentile is completely based on the number of people who fill it in. Thus, to ensure that the percentile we come up with is correct, urge more and more students to come and use this, because only then will it be a good representation of the kind of percentile that you can get. So let's take a couple of queries that you all might have posted here. Any query till now? No real query. I guess we've kind of stated exactly what you all were thinking. If there are any queries, we'll probably, we're here for another 5 minutes or so. you can post in and we could probably answer. Okay, so I guess there aren't any real queries here. So we'll kind of close it right now. But yeah, do keep in mind once again that the Snap score calculator, it should go live in 45 minutes or so. The analysis is probably already live on the site. So do go out and check the analysis in case you missed out anything right now. Score calculator, as I said, another 45 minutes to an hour. So all the best to all of y'all. Hope it helped you out. I can see a couple of queries regarding ZAT. Well, anybody who has queries regarding ZAT, do keep in mind we have a webinar for ZAT tomorrow itself. So do kind of go and register yourself right now for the webinar for ZAT. You can probably go and check www.careerlauncher.com/ZAT and you'll be able to see the banner for the webinar there itself. Just click on it and register yourself and you will be able to see it. So it is careerlauncher.com/ZAT in case anybody has a query. In case you are not able to find that, just go to the Career Launcher website. You will find the banner there as well. Okay, so don't be worried about that. We'll be covering ZAT in detail tomorrow. Exactly what your preparation should be and what you should be looking at for ZAT. So thank you everybody. Hope this was helpful for you all. And once again, another 45 minutes or so, and you should be able to see this. I will not be able to attend tomorrow's webinar. You will get the recording. We will upload the recording of tomorrow's webinar as well. So don't worry about that. Okay. Thank you.